First of all, thank you very much for inviting me this evening, and it's a pleasure to address this audience here, which is certainly interested in the World Radio Communications Conference, which is just around the corner. And maybe you will be the lucky or the unlucky to be spending 4 weeks in Geneva in November, together with about 3,000 other delegates, discussing commas and many dBs and also other things. But it's not only the commas and the dBs which is important. There's a lot of more important things which are at the higher level, which we have to keep in mind, because the radio regulations which we are discussing, they are binding on the members, and of course it is important that we make sure that in the European Union we look at these radio regulations in the context of to what extent they affect the rules in place, and also the rules that we are developing in the EU for spectrum, and also very importantly, of course, the competitiveness of the EU vis-à-vis other areas. So we have been involved as the Commission in a number of World Radio conferences, and we've discussed issues like Galileo, Copernicus, broadcasting plans, mobile frequencies, of course, identification for IMT, as it's called in the WRC slang. And of course, this time we also have a number of important issues which are on the agenda. One being agenda item 1.1, which is broadband, IMT. This is really the crux of a lot of the discussions, and very important also for the Commission. We have frequency bands where we have already harmonized spectrum in Europe, where we want to achieve economies of scale. So by ensuring that we bring these frequency bands into other parts of the world, we want to ensure that, for example, spectrum at 1.5 gigahertz or also at 3.4 to 3.8 gigahertz, which is called the C-band, is also used in other parts of the world for mobile communications. At the same time, we have to ensure, for example, in 3.4 to 3.8 gigahertz, that we have to take into account the existing services, namely satellite services in these bands. So there's a balance to be struck here. We also have the very important discussion under this agenda item of the UHF band and the issue of the discussion between mobile and broadcasting industries, and this is very important for the Commission. We have done a lot of work with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of familiar faces here in the room, in order to try to get a position on the UHF band, and this includes actually going to the WRC with a position that does not support co-primary allocation of mobile and broadcasting below 700 megahertz. Now, why do we do this? We want to ensure, on the one hand, that we move forward quickly with the 700 megahertz band. At the same time, we want to ensure that we give priority to digital terrestrial television below 700 megahertz, and we believe by giving priority we also have to take the right approaches at the WRC. So these are important elements that we can also maybe discuss further. I won't go into details because I know that time is short. I also want to mention just one issue which is also of importance to us, and that is, of course, the agenda for the next WRC. As you know, the WRC this year will already be setting or giving a recommendation as to what is to be discussed in 2019. And with the relevance of 5G, the point that we want to make here is that we need an agenda item on 5G for 2015, and we also believe that it should be focused on spectrum spectrum, which is above 6 gigahertz. So an important element, again, we can discuss. We have put our proposals on the table for the Council in the form of Council decision. Now, there is some discussion in the Council as to the format of this. We believe it's important that we have a strong EU positions in the negotiation, and that can be achieved through such a decision, but this is something we have to discuss with the Council. Therefore, to sum up, we want a common union position. We want it to be favorable to strengthening the competitiveness of the EU internationally, and we want to ensure that it protects the existing EU law. Thank you very much.